start?
Yeah.
You feel good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll just do a couple sort of opening questions. So could you just introduce yourself, name, degree, and year?
I'm William McCarthy. I'm studying arts law and I am a second year arts international relations.
And what's your favorite USU venue on campus?
I reckon courtyard. Like, I actually really like the vibe. There's so many people there all the time. The ice tower is quite good.
And why are you running for board?
I'm running for board because I last year saw a bunch of problems that I really wanted to fix, and I was looking around looking for people who are on the board or in other forms of advocacy or the university itself to fix those problems, and they weren't really doing much on it. And for me, the thing that I found the most important and quite personal for me, mental health care at the university and at the USU is pretty abysmal.
So then what would you say are your top 3 policies?
Yeah, I think there's 3 things. The first one is on mental health care. The university has done a really bad job in dealing with it. USU's not doing much, but campus life is really hard and challenging for lots of people. And I just think that they need to feel more supported, especially for first years that are coming out of high school and use that support. For international students that moved away from home, I just don't think the support's there and we need to fix it. The second one is more about affordability. I think that campus can often just be too expensive for lots of people. I think that places like Food Hub, they're not open long enough in many areas. Like, one of the clinical schools has it open for 2 hours a week, and then one of them has it open 24/7. I think that's something we can fix. The third thing that I think is really important is the USU being a really politically active body, because I think the idea that you can be politically active or not politically active is not entirely true. Like, most decisions, in my opinion, are political. It's just about what direction we do those things.
So out of those 3 policies, just sort of pick one to expand on. So how did you come up with it? Was it your idea? And who did you consult or talk to before deciding it was a priority?
Okay, 100%. I want to start with mental health because I said that's most important for me. In 2016, the university, there was a report into mental health care in universities. It was called like the case of mental health universities. There are a series of recommendations that come from that report. Most of them are not instituted by the USU. So that's where lots of the policy part comes from, is that it's the policy itself comes from that report. That looks like things like having clubs and societies being used in conjunction with classes, in conjunction with other parts of the university, to have reporting on mental health problems early. Because I think, and I've unfortunately experienced in my communities, really tragic mental health outcomes. And it just shocks me that the university refuses to do anything on this. I think that's where the USU needs to step in. So part of my policy there is about making sure those things are reported. But I think it's also about, if you look at CAPS, which like the psychology appointments that the university provides, they're only allowed to have 6 of them a year as a maximum. And that comes down to partly a supply issue, that they just don't want to have enough counsellors to give you. But I think where the university is refusing to step in and take care of students, we need to step in. As for where that came from, as flagged earlier, that thing is deeply personal to me. I won't go into too much, but it's something that I've watched in my communities, and it's so sad. But even beyond just like the really crisis cases, just talking to my friends last year, moving from high school to university, that lots of them went through very bad times. Lots of them were not feeling really good. And in conjunction with talking to those people, noting that there's a problem, I'm running for election to try and fix that problem.
Awesome. And if you could describe your politics without using the words right wing, left wing, progressive, or independent.
So I'm most certainly not going to use the words right wing. Using the words progressive, I think that my political beliefs center around helping people first. That we shouldn't be trying to help the vague notion of like the body of the USU. Yes, we have our fiduciary duties, but on the end of the day, it's the students that put us there and the students that we need to take care of.
But not just related to the USU. So
Not just related to
just
the USU.
describe your politics.
You want me to, without using the words left wing or progressive? I would say I have a strong belief in redistribution of wealth. I have a pretty strong belief in things like taking care of minority communities. As a queer person, I find those kind of struggles very important. I also think that politics at the end of the day should be about when everyone else has done what they want to do, how can we fix that to make sure everyone's taken care of? And that's what my politics is backed by.
Are you a member of any political party?
No, never have been.
Are you part of any campus street ball faction?
No.
Yeah, so you're running as an independent?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Can you expand on, I guess, why you're running as an independent?
Well, part of the reason is that I want the students to be calling the shots, not the few students that are in a political faction calling the shots and what's happening there. It gives me the leeway when I'm running to make sure that I'm running on what I want to run on. Because I think that factions, like, which, you know, I may politically align in some ways with some of them, because there's enough of them for it to hit across the spectrum. But I think that I want to focus on things like mental health, things like queer rights. I don't want a faction telling me that I can't do those things. I'm not running to build a factional CV, I'm running to fix problems, and I don't want other people to get in the way of that.
Do you think that the USU should be more political or less political? And where do you think the line is? Can you be too political?
I don't think there's more political, less political. I think every decision that the USU makes is political.
Should they be more like outwardly facing?
Yeah. I think that they should become more progressive, adopt things like boycott, divest, and sanction. The USU for a long time has used the idea that they're apolitical to stop things from boycott, divest, sanction, especially in Palestine. But the USU has recently started censoring discussion of sensitive geopolitical issues like Palestine. I was at the Easter's debating competition, like the national debating competition for, it was hosted by the USU this year. The USU told the organizers of that competition that they could not just have set topics about sensitive geopolitical issues, and that had specifically a nod and inference towards Palestine. The USU says they're not political, but they're silencing discussion on things that are important to students. I don't think they can use that guise anymore.
Would you support the USU integrating BDS as a policy?
Yep, I think that the part of the USU partnership and advertising policy already kind of does integrate BDS. They say that they cannot partner with human rights, people who do human rights violations, but they still do. They still have deals with companies like Coke. They still moving away from deals like McDonald's, but I think they have an obligation to move away from those things. But I don't think it should just stick to the advertising. I think there's other things like the music that we play at venues. We should also be boycotting artists like who are engaging in terrible behaviors like that. And also we can provide better services to students whilst doing that as well. Like we should be playing Surge FM to platform students from the con, platform Sydney Uni students, not playing Kanye instead. Like I think that's a pretty easy trade-off.
Yeah, and I guess building onto that question, how do you, what is the process, I guess, of integrating BDS in the current context of the structure of the USU board? So
my BDS platform at the moment has about 3 parts. So one of them, as mentioned, is about expanding to things like music, expanding to those areas, make sure we're not just focusing on advertising. The second one on advertising, there's currently 4 left-wing directors on the board. If another 3 were to win, that would be a majority that could pass boycott, divest, and sanction, make sure it's instituted. But I also have a third part of the policy, which I think allows us even better, which is that I think that the USU should actively publish a list of companies that they work with, list of companies they get partnerships with. Because first, I think it's something that the right-wing people are more likely to agree to. It's in the veil of transparency, as things we talk about that. But second, sometimes those 7 board directors are, or hopefully more, are unfortunately going to get that wrong. And we need bodies like the SRC doing that advocacy, having the information they push us, bodies like Oniswar should be able to know like what we're doing deals with, not waiting by billboards to see if a McDonald's ad comes up. It should be pretty much more clear.
Yeah.
Totally. So that's basically answered part of the next question, which was about if sponsorship arrangements should be publicly disclosed to members. So I guess I'd just go into the second part of that question. So given that Coca-Cola, so that Coca-Cola was using the Welcome Fest, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So given that Coca-Cola is named in BDS campaigns, would you have signed off on that Welcome Fest sponsorship as a board director?
No. The USU should be an apartheid-free zone. It should have no connections with companies that are operating on illegal Israeli settlements in Palestine. I don't think that reflects the rest of values of students. I think we can easily move away from that. There are other partnerships we can turn to. We don't have to be selling Coke. Like, we can drink Salon Cola. Like, it's pretty good. Like, I think people can be fine with that.
Yeah. Just like cycling back on what you mentioned earlier. So what do you think is the, I guess, distinction between the SRC and the USU?
I think that the SRC centers itself more around advocacy and also has a provision of student services that sometimes overlaps with the USU. It's like Food Hub is an example of an initiative that overlaps with the USU. But I think that SRC, and I guess you guys only swore as part of the SRC, are unfortunately more and more getting impeded upon by the university. I mean, like, I read the thing that happened today. So the distinction where like one's political, one's not, I don't think that distinction should exist. If the university is going to start coming after things like Oniswara, things like SRC, the USU needs to fill that space and be that political body that's still advocating for progressive values that students want. We need to take all the avenues we can to stand up if they're going to try and silence us.
And how comfortable are you, or would you be, publicly disagreeing with the USU president or fellow board directors? So take me through how you'd handle a moment where you think someone is wrong on a public-facing issue.
What do you mean a public-facing issue, before I...
Like something that...
Like BDS type?
Yeah, like, I guess, yeah, with Kirk, everybody knows that
Yes.
it was at Welcome Fest. Everybody already knows that. Would you be comfortable going public with your disagreement, or how would you handle? Would it be privately handled? How would you handle it?
Well, first, I think the instance is to deal with it privately. Obviously, you need to be conscious of there are certain things on the board that you cannot disclose publicly. So I guess if there are legal obligations that bound me to be silent, I have no choice. But otherwise, I think that we should be engaging students in these conversations. If it is that the board directors don't want to engage with something that the average student does, we can do things like getting 200 people to sign up to make an SGM happen, to start putting these things into things like Constitution, to try and, I think you need to, advocacy doesn't only happen on the board, it's got to happen through consultation off the board, meeting with students, getting them to sign petitions.
Yeah. Moving on. So, can you name one thing that you are critical of how the USU currently operates?
Oh, yeah, 100% the dealing with autonomous and queer spaces, I think has been pretty bad. Right now, we have no queer officer on the USU, and that's because there was only one person able to fill the role, and they've since said they don't want to do it. And then there are no other queer voices. If elected, that is a portfolio I would 100% want to take. I'm a user of the queer space. I see the screenshots of the emails they send when they're like, can we please have some paper towels? Like, I think it's kind of ridiculous that they have to ask for those things all the time. I think the dealing with autonomous spaces, the dealing with queer communities, things like Pride Fest, which is a whole week that we have events that we used to have back pre-COVID, and then we tried to run Glitter Gala last year and got like 17 sign-ups and cancelled. We've gone from a week of dealing with it to not even being able to run that one event. I think that's so terrible. And that comes down to there being, obviously everyone on the board has their own issues, but no one's advocating specifically for this. I think we need someone to do that. I'd love to do it.
Yeah. Could you clarify who, I guess, if you knew who was the portfolio holder for the queer portfolio?
As in the one that stood down?
Yeah.
Well, it was Annika Wang, and then Ethan Floyd was also queer, so they could have taken the role, but has resigned to go and listen with Attila and Gaza, which now means no one will fulfill that role. I think Fan is now fulfilling the role, and the rest of the board are doing it in conjunction with each other.
Yeah. And I guess the opposite of the question would be, what's something that you are, I guess, quite happy with, or really a service that the USU provides that you enjoy?
What I thought was really good this year, I was at the student safety conference earlier in February, and what happened is it sold out. So like I was trying to get tickets, I didn't get it quite in time, so I just showed up and like they let me in. And it was really good. They had Nina Funnell speaking, who was one of the authors of the Red Zone report, and heard all the history of that, and I found that really interesting. I think that Georgia and Archie did a really good job in producing that, and it was really good. So I think that kind of thing's good, but I'd like to see it expanded. It should not be just during off-time semesters like February 13 or something. It should also focus in other languages as well, so we can reach as many people when we're talking about safety. I would say that would, in my opinion, and expanding that further, continuing that legacy, may be the biggest achievement of the USU.
Yeah. I guess you mentioned the Red Zone report.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think the role of the USU should be in terms of being like holding the colleges accountable on certain issues that have risen during the past few months and years?
Yeah. Lots of the recommendations of the Red Zone report don't go to the USU necessarily, but go to the colleges. But the colleges run things through the USU. They have things like Palladium Cup that we deal with. So they like slightly depend on us, and some of the funding also comes through things like USU. Whilst we can't withhold some of those things because they're written by like law specifically and the way we have to put it through, I think we should be in constant contact with the people in the colleges and making sure that these things are kept safe, making sure that they, in conjunction with things like their mental health policy, colleges have their own mental health people who are there for them. But in the cases that they don't, like we should be also helping to supply that. The kids that undergo bad things there should also be taken care of.
So have you read the 2025 to 2028 strategic plan? Yeah. So pick one thing from the plan that you agree with and one thing that you disagree with.
I agree with the environmental part of the plan, especially the stuff from reducing the emissions of the USU. I like to see it go further. So I think that we haven't done great things on like vegetarian options for food. Like if you go to Manning, the sushi, the vegetarian option's not really ever there. The new Manning Deli, there's like one option for you, and then if you go upstairs to the Malaysian restaurant, there's also one option for you. And I mean, I'm a vegetarian, so like personally I care, that's why I know the answer. But I think that we should just make it easier for students to make environmentally conscious choices. So in the same way that like, I'm supportive of that, I'm also critical of the ways that it's being implemented.
And one thing you hardline disagree with?
Hardline disagree with? I think there's it's not super hardline, I think there's too much of an emphasis on the USU as an entity before students as people. The kind of things like saying that the obligation exists, obviously yes it should exist in the long term, but I think first and foremost obligation exists to the members of that union before it exists to the amorphous idea of it.
So I've got a scenario for you. So a group of students rock up to a board meeting and demand you take a position you disagree with. They're very persistent, but they're not really doing anything that breaks the rules. How do you handle that?
Well, I suppose first that goes to the present to handle, so I'll sit there and be silent. But like, I think you need to collaborate and talk to those students. Given there's a diverse set of people on the board, it's highly likely that someone has some connection to them. If I was that person, I would try and have a conversation with them and deal with it outside that. I think that the reason that most students are angry is not necessarily because they disagree with you, but even if they do, they just feel like a lack of consultation. So I think that consulting with those communities, meeting with them, listening to them, perhaps even outside the board meeting to get more time on those things, is often the best way to deal with them.
Do you have any like specific policies or ideas on how to, I guess, make the consultation process a bit more, efficient?
More efficient?
Yeah.
Yep. I think that part of the problem for board directors, like Sans, well, I guess one of them recently, none of them ever run for re-election, which means they don't have an incentive to really communicate back to those groups. They have an incentive to usually the Senate appointed directors and the other ones. I think that we should amend the law to make sure that things like campaign accounts that you use should continue to be accounts for consultation with those communities. Like if you are elected to the board, you should be using that voter base that you connected with, also like other people who didn't vote for you, use those avenues to communicate with those people. I think it means also showing up to like club and society events that often you're not even a part of, just to check in with those people. I'd like to reinstitute things like Queer Forum, and there are a series of other forums that universities used to run. I think the USU could actually do lots of those things, working with people like if you have a queer officer in certain societies, bringing those people along to have those conversations, having those conversations with, I guess, the portfolio holder who has that job, making sure that all those people are in collaboration with that. Because a lot of my policy is like bringing back like queer things like Pride Fest, like Glitter Gala. We shouldn't do that without talking to those people about what they want. Like we need to work out how they would like that.
You just have to pick one, I'm sure there's more than one, but what's one issue at the university you care really, really deeply about?
I talked about mental health, so I might talk about affordability as well, because those are the two ones that I care the most about. I think that affordability really matters. I am in a relatively privileged position that these things don't often hit me. Like I'm a domestic student who lives at home. I do debating, so there's tutoring jobs there for me to get. So I think that the way we need to deal with affordability, the first thing is that I myself have taken the pledge that 20% of my salary, if I get elected on the board, will directly go to Food Hub, and that will scale if I take positions on executive, if that happens to happen, to make sure it always goes there. Because every year, people running for the board are like, I'm going to lower food prices, and then they're like, oh, they wouldn't let me legislate on it. And it's like, well, this case, I'm just going to directly do it. But also, I have a variety of mechanisms to make other parts of the union more profitable that allow us to cross-subsidize food. So I would like to see big name popular brands like USU brought to campus that allows us to cross-subsidize things like cheaper food prices. Things like the Someday Soon Festival, which is a music festival we used to host at Manning. If you read the Onisfar reports back in the day, it's like, this was so profitable, we sold 2.8k tickets, all these drinks, and that was why they attributed themselves to being profitable. The reason that thing doesn't exist anymore is one year they ran it on the same night as Law Ball, so not many people went, and artists weren't great. So I think bringing those things back means we can cross-subsidize and pay for making things food cheaper and more accessible.
If elected, which portfolio or portfolios would you prefer to take on?
So broadly two. First is the queer portfolio. Lots of things I'd love to do there, as mentioned before. And second, I want to establish the creation of the mental health portfolio. I don't think mental health should be a subset of any other issue. Like it is its own issue for every student that lives through it. And it is a struggle for nearly everyone at some point in time, that it needs dedication, needs time, it needs to be reported on every board meeting that we have every month. People should be hearing about what we're doing. We can't just hide behind a series of other portfolios to say, oh, like we didn't do this bit this month. People should be talking about us all the time.
Yeah. On that, I guess, so let's say the mental health portfolio comes to fruition.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your first point of action as the mental health portfolio holder?
The first point of action, as on everything, would be consultation. And I think that the problem with mental health consultation and talking to people is the people you need to talk to most are the people who are least active in those communities. But often they're hiding away, they're more lonely. So that will require a lot of work in conjunction with the university, in conjunction with colleges, with clubs and societies to see who are those people we need to be talking to. But I also note the CEO of the USU, Janina Janku, is a former director of the Reach Out, which is a charity for providing mental health to 12 to 25-year-olds, which like broadly at the USU is exactly the sets of people that we want to be serving. We've got the expertise there, we've got the profit and my other mechanisms to make more profit. It's just like about will and like wanting to do the thing.
And how would you hold yourself accountable to the students that voted for you?
So
if elected.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I would hold myself to account through meeting those people, through keeping things like that Instagram account active. Like, I don't know if you guys know, you heard of Jeff Jackson? Anyway, he was like a congressman, like North Carolina. He's the one that does the videos like, here's what I did in Congress this week, and they became quite popular. Now he's like Attorney General or whatever. I think that kind of engagement from all board directors in the USU, talking to those people, being open with things like, I guess Pulp does less of the reporting, with things like Oniswa and working with those to make sure, because I don't think if elected, I don't think I should just be accountable to people who voted for me. Like there's going to be a bunch of first years that rock up in 6 months' time. I need to be accountable to those people too.
So, you sat in on the April board meeting. What did you make of FanVu's response on BDS that formally aligning the USU with a movement like BDS is sort of cutting against the goal of inclusivity?
I don't think we need to include companies that are complicit in war crimes. Like, inclusivity comes at a trade-off. If you include the people that are complicit in war crimes, if you silence discussions at debating about Palestine, you're not actually including people, you end up excluding lots of people from that. I think formally aligning is like something that doesn't even necessarily have to be done for the policy to occur. I think that's more of a scare tactic to get. You can't do your fiduciary duty if you formally align. But if we just add things like genocide as words to the regulations we're working for on advertising and people who we work with, we can just make sure that those things are enforced.
Vince Tafia pointed out at the meeting that 2 of 14 board directors are Senate appointed rather than elected, and policy changes require a supermajority. He asked whether a majority of students could theoretically support BDS without it translating into a board decision. How would you answer that?
I think a majority of students do support BDS without it currently translating into a board decision. I think that's correct. I agree, like we're on the left running an uphill battle against the Senate appointed directors. As much as I would like it to not be an uphill battle and you try and work and bring those people over, and I think some of the current board directors are actually doing a pretty good job on that. Like some of the directors on the right are worried about like the other section of our advertising policy, which is like, if it's hurting your reputation, then you must cut it. So I think if a majority of students are working and making it clear to the USU, your reputation's getting hurt, it's a good way to also persuade those sets of people over.
I guess onto the next point that you may or may already know about. 7 out of 11 candidates this year are law students. Why do you think that is?
7. I can't really speak for why any of them are running. Like, me running has nothing to do with my law degree. It has to do with the people in my community and the problems I want to fix. Yeah, I'm not sure because it's entirely different to last year, so yeah. I can't really. And
I guess that kind of leads me on to the next part of that question, is that some students have, I guess, voiced out their concerns that having, 7 out of the 11 candidates are coming from like one faculty, essentially, like the law faculty. And it's not exactly representative or reflective of the broader and wider student body. What do you have to say about that? Or is that a valid concern?
Yeah, 100% a valid concern. I think the concern per faculty doesn't bother me as much because there's not much work that's done per faculty apart from like funding reviews and those kind of things, different clubs and societies. The diversity that's really concerning to me is the diversity on queer representation. Like that's the thing I care about. And if we are in a position where potentially if we don't elect any queer person in the cycle, we're going to have no one who can fill that portfolio for a whole year. And that just means nothing's going to get done. These were people that were waiting long time to get reply to their emails in the queer space on being able to access things like paper towels or like fly traps and those kind of things, like basic things that we're talking about. I think that's where I care about diversity. I think the criticism on law, yeah, fair enough. I would note that like most of us do double degrees, so there's other faculties, right? Unless you're a JD, which I don't think any of them are. Or I guess if you're 4th or 5th year, you're no longer.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess in the last bit of that, so you are 1 out of the 7 law students running, and what differentiates you from the other 6?
I think that what differentiates me would be first, I guess a variety of things. First, it's like the beliefs on mental health is something that I guess law students go through it, but it's not different to any other community really. And that's something that I really want to advocate for. Second is that like most of my friends that I've made at university, I have law friends as well, but lots of them and my friends I had pre-university and other areas haven't actually come from law. They've come from a variety of other areas. So I did my other degree, arts degree, I said earlier. I had friends from that as well. Quite a few of my high school friends ended up in went to all boys schools, so I guess engineering and commerce and computer science. So I actually had access to that. But even like within my own family, like we all did different things. My oldest brother is doing like a master's of AI, like that's something I don't really know much about. My other brother, he's going to TAFE, like it's entirely different. He's a union worker out at St. Mary's, so I think I have the experience of living with different things happening and that those communities to talk to.
So do you think your lived experience is what sets you apart from the others?
Yeah, lived experience and policies probably.
Yeah.
So another scenario. So let's say I'm a politically disengaged student and it's campaign season.
Yep.
You're on the campaign trail. So how would you approach me and pitch yourself to me, I guess?
Yes. So because quite a few of my friends come from men from commerce, they all of them are that person, so I've had lots of conversations about this. The way that I would pitch myself is first focusing on things like mental health. Even if you don't engage with campus much, you come here 2 days a week, you buy no food, you get the train home. You or someone you know could do with some help, some oversight, making sure they're okay. I think that pitch is really important because when I see that student, I have no idea what they're going through because these things are often secret, they're hard to see. And talking to that student's like, here, you have no idea what's going to happen to them. So you need to make sure that they're taken care of. Second is I have some policies which I call like fun policies. So things like bringing USU to campus and things like that would be really popular. Things like bringing back music festivals, like the Someday Soon Music Festival. Like artists used to play there, like Royal Otis or Peach PRC or people that played at that back in the day. I think even if you don't like university or being here, music festival is something you can get behind. Like, if you know what other unions do across the world, like the Yale University Student Union, their concert they're having is Zara Larsson performing. It's free. None of them have to pay. They have 15,000 students. We have like 60,000. Like, I'm not saying that we have to bring Zara Larsson, but I think there is a position to be made to bring more people. Like, if you look at the Welcome Fest people that used to perform, it's like people like Baker Boy were quite popular. Members of Peking Duck also performed. Like, bringing those things back, which makes people, it ties in with mental health as well. It makes people happier.
Yeah. And I guess moving on from that, you're already aware that there will be 5 candidates elected, hopefully you'd be one of them. Which other 4 candidates would you be really keen to work with on the board, and why?
4. I don't think we would name all 4, but I do love Serena Guo. She's fantastic. We're good friends. I think that she'll be a real asset to the board. Like, she's very competent, very smart, very good at engaging with people. Something at the board. Like, if I don't get elected, I just hope that she does. Like, yeah.
So that's just one.
That's just one. I like everyone else I've met's like lovely. Like, I don't really have I don't have too many preferences. Not a liberal would be the idea.
Right. So are there any candidates that you would really not like to work with, or that you'd potentially even refuse to work with?
I would not enjoy working with the Liberal Party. Like, people that skew that way, I find it's a rejection of most things that I believe in, and for a long time it's been an institution that's rejected people that I care about.
And I guess onto the next part, who do you see as your strongest competition in this race?
I'm not sure if I think about it as competition because there's 5 people getting elected. So like, even if someone's great, they'll also go. I guess like Serena's really competent. I'm sure she'll do fantastically.
Yeah. And
Maybe one other name, just because.
As in someone who's like going to get a lot of votes.
Just who do you see as your strongest competition? Like just one name that isn't the same as the person that you'd love to get up the most. Can't all be positive, unfortunately. Yeah.
I don't think of it as competition because I think all these people work together. But like, I imagine Bo Howe will also do very well. Like he's got a great base.
Before we get on to like, before we wrap up and get to the less stressful questions, lastly, why should a student vote for you?
I will fight for mental health in a way that other candidates, it's not on their list of priorities. I have a series of mechanisms to lower food prices to make more affordable, and I'll make sure that the USU is reflecting progressive values of students and bringing back fun things like live music to make people happier.
Yeah.
So then we'll just have, this is just like a bit of info for your profile in the sort of little booklet that we're making. So
Nice.
what's your slogan and what's the story behind it?
My slogan is I will fix it. As my color is turmeric yellow, so the little image you'll see is like me as Bob the Builder with a little hard hat.
Okay, nice.
But the story behind it is just that I didn't want to run for this position as to build a CV to make some people happy in a faction, or because like I was the most viable candidate in that faction. I ran because I saw things that I wanted to fix. I saw that people who I go out to a courtyard with wouldn't order food because it was too expensive. I saw people who were really upset because of things like mental health, feeling that university didn't care about them, that like Mark Scott doesn't know who they are, their dean doesn't know who they are, no one knows them. That sort of atomizing loneliness, I want to fix those things.
I guess, can you disclose who your campaign manager is?
Yeah, 100%. Archie Wolfson.
Yeah. And what is your favorite drink to get on campus?
Iced taro. Oh, I love the iced taro. Everyone looks at me funny because it's like purple, and they're like, "Why are you drinking
Sounds
it?"
kind of good.
Yeah.
And lastly, what is your green flag and what is your red flag?
I think my green flag is that like I'm often quite happy. Like I'm trying to bring that out. Like I guess it fits the campaign, the yellow and the mental health. It's trying to bring the happiness to it. My red flag. I think it would be.
It's hard to come up with one for yourself, yeah.
I'm not saying I have no problems. Just trying to come up with one.
Yeah.
I think at times I get a bit too into the details of the thing. Like when I was researching my policy on bringing USU to campus, I can tell you what their profitability rate is now, which perhaps wasn't as useful as time I could be spending on other things.
That should be all.
Okay.
Yeah, congratulations for finishing your Oniswa interview.
Yay.
Yeah, good job.
Thank you.